Welcome to Taking Stock. I'm Amanda Lang. Coming up on the show, if the inflation fight is over, businesses and consumers may not yet have got the memo. And immigration is in focus, and not in a good way. Are we doing too much too fast? Plus, high interest loans are the only avenue for some borrowers, but is the market about to get a lot tougher? That's all ahead. First, for the week that was in business, it's time for the briefs. Inflation in Canada climbed slightly in December to 3.4%, driven in part by higher-priced gasoline. Food prices rose 4.7% in December. That was flat with November and well below their peak. The Bank of Canada will make a decision on interest rates next week. Many economists expect the bank to begin lowering rates sometime in 2024, but not until spring at the earliest. A central bank survey of businesses paints a picture of pessimism overall, but with some bright spots. Business sentiment is down sharply as higher interest rates weigh on sales, and uncertainty about consumers looms large. Fewer businesses plan price hikes in the year ahead, though more than a quarter of them still do. The central bank survey of consumers found them pessimistic about inflation, with more reporting changing their behavior as a result. On the bright side, the majority of mortgage holders think that will allow them to meet higher payments. Good news, as higher inflation dashes their hopes of lower rates in the near term. Pleased to extend the deadline to repay pandemic-era business loans went unanswered this week. The date to repay the $49 billion in federal loans has already been extended twice. More than half of those who took loans repaid them on time. Those that pay by this week are forgiven up to $20,000. After this week, the loans carry an interest rate of 5% for 3 years. Higher interest rates hit the pace of home building in Canada last year. CMHC reports that the rate of new units built fell 7% last year to 223,513, driven by a 25% drop in single detached homes. On the plus side, multi-unit home building was up, especially in Toronto and Vancouver, where starts rose overall 5% and 28% respectively. Canada's health minister says he's disappointed by a recent ruling in the U.S. allowing the state of Florida to import drugs in bulk from Canada, and he promised to safeguard supply of medications for Canadians. Florida is just the first state hoping to access cheaper drugs north of the border. Canadian drugs are often less expensive because of the purchasing power of our centralized health system. And those are your business briefs. Well, it does seem that businesses are feeling pretty gloomy about the year ahead, with inflation moderating, but wages picking up and consumers warier than ever. So what's in store? Perrin Beatty is President and CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Perrin, always good to see you.
Great to see you, Amanda.
So this kind of combination, of course, makes us a little bit worried about self-fulfilling prophecies. We need businesses to invest, and we'd like them to hire. Based on what you're seeing in terms of sentiment, is that likely to happen?
No, it's very tentative right now. Our own survey of business conditions that we did at the final quarter of last year showed the same thing as the most recent surveys show. And that's that businesses are worried. They see continued cost pressures on them. They are worried about skills, but they're more or less holding the line in terms of hiring. They're seeing skill shortages. Some of the pressure they're easing off. You're not getting other companies rating you the way was the case before, but they're also very worried about interest rates and whether or not we're going to be maintaining interest rates at this level indefinitely.
Does it help at all that even in the face of inflation that's going to bounce around here a little bit, not just go straight to the target the bank wants to see, most economists are still saying, Perrin, that we'll see rates coming down for sure this year, some even as soon as April. Can businesses kind of look forward to that and start to count on it a little bit?
They are, but they're still tentative. I think they're from Missouri and they want to see it first to have concrete proof that things are happening. The inflation figures for December were disconcerting because they showed that inflation came in at a higher level last year than was anticipated, and that we have core inflation still baked in. So they're concerned about that. If, on the other hand, we see interest rates starting to ease in April, this will start to give people confidence that things are moving in the right direction.
One of the perennial problems for business, and this has been going on a long time, of course, is access to labor. We do see strong wage growth here, but we also have high immigration, Perrin. Give me your thoughts on whether that is going to solve a problem for business and help grow the economy, or whether it is simply now turning into an affordability problem, as some would say.
In the short term, obviously, where there's skills shortages, having more people makes it easier to fill the needs. But in the longer term, as we look at the Canadian economy, it creates problems. We've tended to look to immigration as a quick fix to skills issues, to problems that universities and colleges have in terms of meeting their budgets and so on. We need instead to have a population strategy for Canada that's much more holistic and that looks at what will our skills needs be. How do we ensure that we have medical facilities available for people here? How do we ensure that we have housing that's affordable, available for Canadians? And how do we make sure that we make full use of the talent we already have in groups that are underrepresented? Indigenous Canadians, women, persons with disabilities, new Canadians who are still underrepresented, and others. And how do we get the politicians to focus more on productivity than on job growth per se?
Not a ton of time here, but that tentative feeling for businesses that you're describing, we're looking at some kind of perhaps mild recession here. Does that sort of bake it in? If businesses aren't feeling confident that we were likely to see a slowdown here?
There's a feedback loop there. And we're certainly finding in our surveys for the Business Data Lab, as others are finding as well, that there's uncertainty, that people are worried about slackening consumer demand, that they just don't know where things are going. And as a result, they're pulling back on their own investments, their own hiring and so on as well. So it becomes self-fulfilling to an extent. What we need is some good news, such as interest rates coming down because the Bank of Canada is satisfied that inflation is moving in the right direction.
Perrin, so good to have you. Always appreciate your time.
Glad to be with you.
Perrin Beatty, President and CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Coming up, immigration has long been a source of strength for Canada, but could it turn into a problem? Stay with us.